Hello, today is Thursday, July 11th, 2019. I'm Joe Schmidt from TC2, and this is Staying Connected. One of the things that we strive to do on these podcasts is to keep you informed of changes taking place on the supplier landscape. Over the past year, we've talked about enterprise impacting changes at Verizon, AT&T, Windstream, T-Mobile, Sprint, and a few others. And today, we're going to look at NTT. Based on market cap, NTT is one of the largest network service providers in the world, and on July 1st, NTT launched a new company called NTT Limited. NTT describes the new company as a world-leading global technology services provider that brings together the capabilities of 28 companies, including NTT Communications, Dimension Data, and NTT Security. According to NTT's president and CEO, this will be an $11 billion business headquartered in London, England. It will employ around 40,000 people and have offices across 70-plus countries and regions. This is a big deal if you're a global enterprise, so we want to take a closer look at the new organization. To do that, I'm joined on today's podcast by my fellow TC2 project director, Theresa Knutson. So, Theresa, what do you think of this new NTT business?
Hey, Joe. I think this announcement is really interesting, and it's going to impact many of our global enterprise clients, as often NTT Communications, NTT Security, and Data are key suppliers. As you mentioned, the new entity called NTT Limited will be headquartered in London. NTT Limited says that it offers services including data center, application and IT services, managed services, research and development, cloud, and system integration services. So the list is quite long. And the press release is really interesting because it mentions Data rolling into this, as well as NTT Communications and NTT Security. But if you do business with NTT Data, that will remain a separate entity. And one caveat that they mentioned in their press release is that Data will remain a branded named company in the Middle East and Africa. And that's primarily due to name recognition, brand recognition within the region. So just know that there's a lot of changes going on within NTT, and it impacts a lot of suppliers that most of our large enterprise customers use.
You know, when I heard that this NTT company is going to be headquartered in London, I scratched my head. I mean, NTT is very much Japanese, and Dimension Data is a South African company. I know one of our European colleagues thinks this will give NTT a better position in EMEA, where I think it's been a bit of a challenge for them in the past. But regardless of where NTT Limited is headquartered, I think this is a positive because more global providers, that's a good thing for enterprises.
Yeah, and I agree. I think this is a very positive move, and it's about time that NTT consolidated their approach to their customers. So thinking back, NTT first purchased Dimension Data in 2010, and they've really operated them as a separate company during that entire time. So NTT Communications and Data have historically struggled to coordinate the responses to RFPs. So if our clients are sending out a big RFP, oftentimes we would get an RFP response back from NTT Communications and Data separately because they fought over who potentially could deliver the best services. So we've also seen strife within NTT Communications and Data and the NTT group themselves. So I think aligning all of these separate companies under NTT Limited is a good idea, and hopefully it will allow NTT to operate more holistically and not cannibalize their own customer base.
You know, I'll be curious to see if NTT is going to attempt to productize their managed services, because as you know, Theresa, we generally see clients wanting custom managed services and the related SLAs that support their business and to help mitigate the risk. You know, I spent 7 years working for TC2 in Asia Pacific, and NTT, it was always one of the top go-to in-country and regional suppliers in Asia Pacific, but frankly, growth wasn't going to happen in Japan, so it's good to see that NTT is amping up its global ambitions.
Yeah, we definitely see this announcement as a good thing, but as with all change, it's going to be a little painful getting to the end state. So there's going to be shuffling and realigning of account teams, and this restructuring will become a bit of a battleground. And it's critical during this time that you stay in regular contact with your account teams with the various entities so that you're aware when the changes occur. And you should seize this opportunity to voice your opinion with the new NTT Limited team as to your pain points. So if you have problems with underperforming account teams, you have service support issues, anything, bring those up now and let the new team that gets assigned to you address those. So one thing to note, if you'd like to keep up with their public information, they have a new website. It's called hello.global.ntt. So that's a good place to check as well.
So, Theresa, what should enterprise customers do now if they are set to issue an RFP or will be issuing an RFP in, say, the next 6 to 12 months?
Yeah, it's an interesting time when you're going to the market when a big supplier is going through some organizational change. But I would proactively reach out to the account reps and find out how the account teams are going to be impacted by this organizational announcement. So ask them weekly, monthly during this time, and then issue the RFP accordingly. So if the response you get from the account teams is, we're not quite sure yet, send it to both entities, go ahead and do that. If the response you get is, look, we're going to be the lead account team, send it to us, then follow that guidance. So, we know that these organizational changes take a while to work out the kinks, but we have full confidence that the NTT Limited management team has done a lot of background work to make sure that they've figured out how the processes will work now. So reach out to your teams and just keep in contact.
Supplier organizational changes are always, shall I say, interesting. Account teams are reorganized. Support during the transition becomes a bit risky. And eventually, I suspect that there will be some sort of consolidation of NTT's NOCs. If I'm giving advice, be sure to ask some added questions in your RFP about NTT's plans for support over the next 1, 3, and 5 years.
Yeah, I think this type of situation presents its own set of risks for our enterprise customers, but ultimately it should make contracting for these services much easier. You would have a single MSA with related SOWs for the services that you're buying from NTT Limited. But it also means that if you today have separate contracts with these now merged entities, so say you have a contract with NTT Security, NTT Communications, and Data, you really need to do some background and homework to make sure that you've aligned and matched up all these MSAs. So when you get to a single MSA, you've picked the best terms and conditions that are in the individual agreements. So there's going to be some contractual work going on. There's going to be some support issues and changes happening, but ultimately there will be a better end state for NTT.
Yeah, right. And to be clear, we believe that this is a positive move and will be beneficial for clients. Now, this new organization structure simply makes sense. And frankly, we wonder why it wasn't done sooner. And we think that it will eliminate the confusion that we just talked about earlier. So, Theresa, do you have any final thoughts?
Yeah, I've got an interesting one. So if you use Dimension Data's telecom expense management or communications lifecycle management, they call it TEM or CLM services, know that they are also part of this new NTT Limited company. So in the past, we've seen a lot of consolidation in the TEM industry, but that's primarily one competing TEM supplier buying another one. This situation is really unique because Data's TEM services is now part of the same entity that owns NTT Communications, which is a transport carrier. So it adds a layer of complexity here because you have a transport carrier in the mix of a company who's managing your transport expenses or your telecom expenses. So if anything we know is that we can all count on change in the ICT space. It's constant. So I guess understanding what this change means to your company is really critical. So stay in touch with your NTT and Data account teams and ask for regular updates.
All right. Thanks, Theresa. If you would like to learn more about the changes taking place at NTT, or if you have other ICT-related issues that you'd like to discuss, you can contact Theresa, me, or any of our LB3 and TC2 colleagues by giving us a call or sending us an email. You can also stay current by checking out our websites or follow us on LinkedIn.